Good afternoon and welcome to Heartland Digital. Today we're talking with Meaghan Hackinen. Meaghan is an endurance cyclist. She is an author. She is a bike rider who enjoys riding her bike, whether or not it's for reaching a goal or just hanging out with friends. And she's also an ambassador for adventure cycling. Just 1 week ago, and from when we recorded this, Meaghan left the flood wall at Cape Girardeau, headed to the west to Port Orford, Oregon, and she's riding the gravel route, which starts on the banks of the Mississippi right here in Cape Girardeau. So she's been on the road for a week. She's been through the Ozarks. She's been through the Osage Prairie a little bit. So we thought we'd check in with Meaghan and see how she's doing. Good morning, Meaghan. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Legs are starting to feel seasoned and warmed up, and I think I'm getting used to the heat and humidity. And it's just been a beautiful journey so far. Coming to you from Tulsa, where I'm off route visiting some friends for the day.
So how has the ride been so far?
It's been full of variety and changing scenery. Leaving Cape Girardeau, you start climbing immediately, and you're kind of on these quiet double track and gravel roads through the Ozarks, and lots of shade, which was really nice, and lots of water. I came through just after that flooding happened around Black River, so the water crossings were a little high, but I missed experiencing the devastation myself, but it was something I did see around that area. And there's some pavement. The Golden Gravel is about 30% pavement. And those sections I always look forward to because they're these very quiet, paved back roads. So you can just go a little bit faster and enjoy the smoothness. And then the road will turn onto more gravel. So far, yeah, lots of variety, lots of water. It's kind of dried up here now that I've gone west of Pittsburgh, and lots of little things to see. Lots of cardinals and blue bunting and chipmunks and squirrels, and just things to kind of keep me engaged.
So talk a little bit more about the road conditions. And like you said, you start going up almost immediately. What is it like climbing the hills? If I were a relatively fit cyclist, how much of a problem would that be for me?
Think it depends on how much gear you have on your bike. If you're just on a gravel bike, it's probably not that difficult. Your heart rate's going to go up a bit and it'll be a bit of an interval. And if you've got some good gearing on the back of your bike, a range of gears to choose from, it shouldn't be too hard. If you've got full bike packing kit like me, including my tent and my stove and my food and, my t-shirt for rest days, things get a lot harder carrying all that weight uphill. And there's sections where the grade exceeds 15% that I've definitely found myself walking, but that's okay. I don't mind walking, get to use the legs differently. And then, the descent is going to be all that much sweeter. The nice thing about the hills in the Ozarks is that they're really pitchy, but they're not long. So you know that the end is in sight and you're not going to be hiking or, crawling up at 3 miles an hour for very long, and you'll get to rip down like a roller coaster and come up the other side. But yeah, they are very sawtooth. They are very pitchy. But like I said, things kind of have flattened out as I've headed west into Kansas and Oklahoma.
So a little bit about the roads. How much traffic are you facing? I think that the goal of the trail, this path, is to take it off the main roads. Do you think it's been very successful in this, at least through Missouri?
Definitely, yeah. There's been very little traffic, and it's surprising. I'll be on some dirt road and then all of a sudden pop out into town with a grocery store and maybe a city park to camp in, and 1,000 people living there. So these aren't big towns, but it just surprises me how I kind of feel like I'm in the middle of nowhere, and then you pop into some place. The traffic has been, traffic is the wrong word. The vehicles passing have been very infrequent. People either give like the little tiny, like 2-fingered or 1-fingered, like acknowledgement, or they full on wave like they're, I don't know, like really excited to see me. And so I've been waving at everyone, and which again hasn't been too frequent. But yeah, definitely succeeds in getting away from the busier roads. But at the same time, I feel safe in that if I did have a crash or something happened to me, or I ran out of water, somebody would come by and and I'd be able to get help from someone. And of course, I carry my emergency SOS device, but it's nice to know that I'm in a remote area, but I'm not, on the moon.
So let's talk a little bit about it. You're on the back roads. How are you able to follow this path? Talk a little bit about, it's a free download from the Adventure Cycling. So anybody can download it onto their cycling computer or their regular or their phone even. How are you using that plan to chart your trail?
Yeah, so you're right. Anyone can download it onto your phone or onto your bike computer, and you really do need the digital map. I think it doesn't come as a print map, but a print map would be too difficult to navigate because the roads aren't always marked and they're not always very big roads that you're turning onto. So I have my bike computer in front of me on my handlebars and always pulled up to the map screen so that I can see where the turns are. I have it set with notifications. So before there's a turn, I get a little ding to remind me to, pay attention for the turn. And that's been really helpful so that I don't shoot by. Just because it is kind of a meandering ride. You're not on the same road for that long. It's often changing direction, which keeps things really interesting, but it's hard to, I would say impossible to follow unless you had a digital route. The app on my phone has things like towns and camping areas and hotels marked so that I can use that to help plan my trip, as well as water sources, which is obviously super important. And I try to carry what I need for the day, but I do need to stop to get things like water, which, you're going to drink up over the course of a few hours usually.
So this trail, this path created by the Adventure Cycling kind of parallels a couple of other trails by the Adventure Cycling. There's the Route 66 trail that you hit near Springfield. It is very close to the Trans-American Trail, the Great River South. Hey, do you see any other cyclists that are on the main road, or are you keeping track of any of those people? Have you passed anybody?
I've bumped into some Trans-America cyclists on the towns where both routes dip into, and that's been neat to see. And I think, I ran into a couple of guys from Germany and Austria in Lamar, and they were about 60, and they were cycling together. So having opposite direction, they were going west to east on the Trans Am Trail, and they were credit card touring. So they weren't camping at all. They weren't cooking their own food. They were staying in hotels. So we had some funny different experiences to share. I was like, this is the first time I've showered in 2 days or 3 days. And they were like, oh, wow, we shower every night. It feels really good.
The animals, you talked a little bit about seeing the birds. Any problems with dogs or anything like that on this route?
I've been chased by a few dogs, but nothing too scary or aggressive. And I have had some pretty awful run-ins with dogs in, Greece and Morocco and Arkansas. But I would say the dogs in Missouri haven't been too bad. And generally, if I do encounter a scary dog, I hop off my bike and I tell it to go home. And usually that kind of disarms them. And I feel like they like giving chase. And once you're not a target to chase anymore, they're kind of like, well, this isn't fun. So nothing too bad. I was accidentally chasing some skunks for a while, and I'm glad that I didn't experience any negative effects there. And I've run into some raccoons, but no mischievous ones in camp yet. And there are bears over quite a bit of the route, so definitely going to be prepared for that when I kind of, I'm going to pick up some bear spray at some point and have to be a bit more careful about my food storage and things like that.
I didn't want to tell you, but like 2 days in, there were bears spotted about 30 miles south of you. So
Wow.
they're the small black bears that you have in Missouri, but they can, because you had talked about that before you left, about your desire to see bears from a distance.
Yes. Bears from a distance. Well, I'm glad you didn't tell me, actually. I would rather be surprised or
yeah, that's what I thought. You don't want to be thinking about that when you're camping out.
No.
The people that you've met so far, how have they reacted?
People have been really curious and friendly. Yeah, I think being on a bike puts me in a nice position because I'm a traveler and I'm easy to access. I'm not rolling up in my, my vehicle. I feel like I seem more approachable. So I've met some lovely people. One of the one of the most, one of my favorite encounters was when I was kind of riding through the Black River area. There was a couple in a pickup truck and they asked me if I needed water. And I said, "Oh, no, I've got water. I'm good." And they're like, "Well, we have cold water." And I was like, "Oh, okay, I'll take some cold water. That sounds great." And they asked me if I'd seen any downed trees on my route. And I was like, "No, I don't think so." And they were just driving around the area in their pickup truck with chainsaws, cutting down trees that had come over the route from the flooding and stuff, and helping out people on private properties and on the road. And that's how they were spending their day. And I just really appreciated that kind of community minded sentiment and ethos. And, they saw something, challenging had happened within the community, and they had, immediately stepped up and were trying to do something to make lives easier for people. And I just thought that was really beautiful, and that they were, they weren't out there giving cyclists water on purpose. I just happened to be the recipient of their kindness, and I thought that was just really lovely. I was happy to meet them.
Excellent. Now, we'll take a break after this question, but what has been for your first week, what has been the most memorable experience?
Okay, I might need a second to think about this. Um, hmm. Maybe it's another human encounter. I was having breakfast in Lamar at the hotel, and they had a great big hotel breakfast. It was perfect for cyclists, the kind where you can make your own waffles. I was chatting with the guy from Austria and Germany, and they were cycling the Trans Am Trail, like I had said. And I have raced that route, and I raced it 9 years ago, so a while back. And when I came over Tagwadi Pass in Wyoming, coming out of Yellowstone, a snowstorm hit, and I was, at the top of the summit, layering up to descend in the snow, and it was a scary experience. And as I descended, I pulled into Lava Mountain Lodge, which is the only thing on the way down, to warm up and have a hot chocolate and warm my hands up. And these two cyclists told me the exact same experience that they had just had earlier on the trail this month. And it was just so funny to connect in this way, having like a very similar experience. And I think all these years I've been thinking I've been the only person stuck in the snowstorm on top of this pass in Wyoming. And it probably actually happens all the time, because weather turns so inclement so quickly in these high altitude areas. So we commiserated about how terrifying it was to ride down in the snow, but you don't really have a choice. You've got to get down the mountain. I guess we could have hitchhiked. And then, the comfort of warming up with hot coffee. So the experience of realizing I wasn't alone in this challenge, and then, connecting with these two other cyclists, and just being able to like finish each other's sentence for a bit. It was really lovely. And I've been on my own out here mostly. So I think those human connections have been even more valuable to me than usual. So yeah, I would say that's probably been the biggest moment. But I think the character of the route has been such that there are so many small things throughout the day that kind of make it enjoyable. Little things like soft serve ice cream and river dips, and spotting a bird that I've never seen before and watching it flitter around. So all those little things kind of have filled the day. It's just been pretty pleasant.
Oh, cool. Well, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk a little bit about the gear that you're using, how it's, maybe working out, what you would suggest if anybody wanted to give it a try from starting here in Cape Girardeau. That's fine. Have a drink, enjoy. We'll be right back. I'm back with Meaghan Hackinen, and we're talking about the Golden Gravel Trail that starts in Cape Girardeau. Meaghan is an adventure cycling representative of ambassador is the word we're looking for. And you're trying out this trail, giving it a little publicity. And, one of the things about it is it starts here in Cape Girardeau, and that makes it a pretty cool start for an adventure of somebody who wants to come to town and then go start a long major, and I don't want to say endurance bike ride, but you'll be pretty strong if you finish this route. So, let's talk a little bit about the gear that you use, what you take. What kind of bike are you using? How do you carry your tent? How do you carry your water? And how it kind of works for you?
I'm using a Salsa Cycles Cutthroat with a front suspension, and I'm a Salsa sponsored rider. I chose this bike because it puts you in kind of a more upright position, and with the suspension, I can roll over chunkier things on the descents. And I figured with such a long route, it would be nice to have more comfort. I don't think you need suspension to ride this route. You could do it on more of a bit more of a racy gravel bike. But one thing that adventure cycling recommends and that I feel has been really useful is wider tires. So I use 2.2-inch tires. Adventure cycling recommends 2.2 to 2.4 inch. And again, that's to make more comfortable, to roll things over, to handle chunkier terrain and parts. And I haven't even seen maybe 10% of the route yet. Maybe I've seen 10%. So I don't know what things will be like when I hit the mountain passes in Colorado and different states, but I think there'll be some rough sections, so I feel better equipped with wider tires. I have a front and rear bike light. I don't plan on riding at night, but you never know. And I think maybe pre-dawn riding might be more when I'm going to be using those lights because the temperatures are pretty steamy this week. And I'm going through places like Moab and Utah that will be hot as well. For storage, I have several bike packing bags on my bike, and I'm also supported by Apidura packs. So they're the ones who've made my packs. I have a top two bag where I keep my electronics and hygiene stuff, just kind of lip gloss and I sound such like a diva, SPF lip gloss and sunscreen and charger for my phone and everything. I have a frame bag where I keep my 3 liters of water, and I feel like 3 liters is a nice amount and I can carry more if I need to between sections. I carry my tent and sleeping gear in a front roll on the front of my bike, and that can be a little trickier to access. So I don't always want to be opening and closing the bag. So I, open it at night when I set up camp, and then I close it up in the morning before I leave and pack everything away, and then I try not to touch it. There's also an extra pouch on there where I keep my cooking supplies. So I have a small stove, a pot, and I try and buy my food from day to day. So I carry my snacks with me for the day, and at the end of the day, I buy snacks for the next day and dinner, whatever that looks like. Usually something like sidekicks or ravioli. I'm not a camp food connoisseur. I just kind of get something easy. I have oatmeal every single day for breakfast, unless I'm in town, and then I'll go to a diner and get something. And most days I stop for lunch somewhere because I enjoy tasting the flavor of places, and I can't pass up a greasy spoon or a pie place or a soft serve. So I also have a seat post bag on the back of my bike, and I carry all my clothes in there. It's 10 liters, and I've kind of got 2 different outfits for cycling: an off the bike outfit, a rain jacket, a pair of pants. I don't have a spare change of shoes, though. I started with one and I lost a shoe, and now I just have my cycling shoes. And I think I'm going to buy some flip-flops. I've got to figure that out. But I feel like once I get to a certain amount of gear, I start to lose things, and then it narrows itself down. So maybe I need to be more organized.
So when you're looking for water and you say you carry 3 liters, where do you get your water?
It depends. I try to fill up at gas stations, and because I'm usually popping in to get something else, and it's easy to grab a sink or something like that. If there's a more remote stretch and clean, a clear spring-fed creek or something like that, I'll filter off the creek. I also have a water filter. The route does a good job of marking the long stretches of water carry where you'll want to carry more water to be careful, or when the water isn't good for, you wouldn't want to filter it anyways. It's too contaminated by agriculture or runoff. So mostly at gas stations, and whenever I camp, I make sure to fill up there, if it's a city park or a campground, before I leave. So I start the day with full fresh water. And yeah, that's kind of how it goes. I keep an eye on the water, and if it, I have in the past knocked on people's doors and asked to use their spigot or asked them to fill up the water for me. And obviously I want to be self-sufficient. I want to avoid asking strangers for help, but if someone's home, I've always received a really positive response. And like I mentioned earlier, the route is remote, but you are going past people's houses. So I trust in most sections I wouldn't perish. Maybe in Utah though.
All right, at the end of the day, you're looking for a place to stay, not always a hotel. What are you looking for? I know that you talked about maybe a city park or something like that. Is that kind of how do you divide, or how often do you stay in a hotel versus how often do you wild camp, I guess is the best term?
I try and wild camp or stay in parks as much as possible, to help the budget go farther. And then I think after maybe 3 or 4 nights, I'm like, okay, I really could use. It's mostly the air conditioning, honestly, air conditioning and a proper spacious bed. So I in the morning or the day before, I take a look at the route to kind of see what towns I'm going through and see how that lines up with how much I'd like to ride that day. So it's really on a day by day basis. The route has city parks where camping is permitted marked on it, so that makes things quite easy, and as well as some of the hotels. So I can kind of plan accordingly. But I'm trying to camp like most of the time, but also I enjoy that time being inside and refreshing. And I really love like a small town motel, like a mom and pop one. I just find them adorable.
So the Adventure Cycling magazine article about this trail really focused on the west end of the trail, coming out of Oregon and going into Utah and Colorado. What has been really cool, and we kind of talked about this a little bit about your best experience, but what do you really like about the east end headed west?
I think it's a little less explored. I think that there definitely is gravel cycling, on these back roads, but not to the extent that it could be developed or experienced. So it's kind of neat to be one of the, like not the first people, but earlier on. And there's plenty of resupplies and towns between, along the route. So it's easy from a logistical point of view, but it's still challenging because you're going up and down these hills all the time, right? So yeah, I think it feels like quite adventurous, even though this area has been inhabited for a long time. And it also, it's quite satisfying to just be popping in and out of towns regularly and not have to think too far ahead, I guess.
So what's next for you? How much time have you allotted to finish this trail? And then what are you going to do afterwards?
I have 8 weeks and I've been on the road 1 week, and I've made it through the first section, which is Missouri. I entered Kansas and now I'm in Oklahoma, and then I'll go back into Kansas and westward into Colorado. So 7 more weeks. When I finish, I'm spending a couple days in Eugene, Oregon, and then taking the train from Eugene up to British Columbia, where I live. I'm doing a bike race. It's like I don't know, 400-mile ultra 1 week after I finish. So hopefully the legs will be recovered from touring and strong. And then I'm heading off to Turkey next month to do my final big ultra of the year, the Taurus Mountain Race. And that is about 1,000 miles. And it's a first edition race, so it's going to be very exciting. It's never happened before. There's a killer lineup of athletes, including a very deep women's roster. So as I'm riding the Golden Gravel, I'm also thinking about that future race and trying to incorporate some intervals on the climbs and, just take really good care of my body so that I'm not, so that I'm entering my final training block in September really strong. So prioritizing sleep, making sure I get leafy salads and making sure that I stretch and just kind of, maintain everything while I'm out here.
So a little bit more about you. Where can people follow you, where you're going for the rest of the ride, where they can follow you professionally, and then just a little bit about your books.
For sure. So the best place to follow the ride is on Adventure Cycling's website. They've got a page about the Golden Gravel route, and it links out to the tracking page, and you can follow the riders on the Golden Gravel route, the Great Divide mountain bike route, and the Trans Am route. And you can search for me by name there and kind of see me making my way across the country. And I'm on the internet as Meaghan Hackinen, first and last name. That's where I'm on Facebook and Instagram and Strava, and that's my website as well. I've written 2 books about my cycling adventures: South the Way, the Pacific Coast on 2 Wheels. And that was about my first big bike trip with my sister down the Pacific Coast from northern BC to almost the tip of the Baja Peninsula on another one of Adventure Cycling's routes, plus a little bit in Canada and Mexico. And my second book is Shifting Gears Coast to Coast on the Trans Am Bike Race. And that's about my first ultra, racing the Trans-America Trail in 2017 from Astoria, Oregon to Yorktown, Virginia. So kind of showing people what ultra endurance cycling is like, and trying to kind of give a glimpse into that strange and, for me, really exciting and satisfying world. You can find these books on audiobook and digital. I think they're a little hard to get in print because my publisher is in Canada and they're limited in where they ship things. But you can listen to the audiobook or the digital copy anywhere.
And you can check out, your local bike shop may actually have a copy of them as well.
Bookstore. Oh, but maybe the bike shop.
Yeah, as well. Well, Meaghan, thank you for spending a little bit of your rest day with us. I know you've got a big presentation tonight, so good luck with that. I hope you check back in with us as you get a little bit further along,
Sure.
just so that we can talk a little bit more about if you want to start a bike ride here in Cape Girardeau or anywhere in the southern part of Missouri and just head west. They've got it marked out for you, and you're going to be the ambassador for the trip. So I appreciate your time today.
Thanks for having me. Been super fun.